Hello and welcome to Fertilizing Orchids. Today I'm going to talk a bit about fertilizer. We got our water, we got a TDS meter, we got our fertilizer. This is plain RO water, straight from the reverse osmosis machine. I always use a TDS meter. It measures the parts per million that are in a solution. The name says it, TDS is total dissolved stuff or solids. So it measures how much feed you put in the water. That way you don't have to take in account the measurements they say at the fertilizer. You can choose yourself if you have heavy feeders like a Vanda, Phalaenopsis, Cattleyas. Then you can give them a higher ppm so they get more feed. If you got pedalums, for instance, that are low feeders, then you can give them a lower TDS. It's always important to, when you have fed a couple of times, to give them a good flush with plain water, because that will ensure there's no salt buildup in the media. I use Rainmix from Akerne. Rainmix is in fact the European version of MSU. That is that's developed in Michigan State University. That's why it's MSU feed. So this is the European version of that. This is what's in it. There's nitrate nitrogen, 11%, 11%. It has phosphorus and 2.7%. It has potassium and 13.7%. Potassium, the English word makes for it to become a bit tricky, because that's the K, and the K stands for kalium. We in the Netherlands call it kalium, and kalium is I guess a Latin word, but in English it's called potassium. That can give some that's where it can mixed up, but potassium is the K, so MPK. It's 11% plus a little bit of ammonia, nitrogen, 0.8%, 3%, 14%. So it's, yeah, that is what they found out is the best ratio for orchids. Then there is calcium in the form of calcium oxide of 12%. Calcium is in your tap water, but that is calcium carbonate, and that is hard for orchids to pick up. So they need a calcium they can pick up very well. Calcium ensures strong and healthy growth and resistance for disease. Calcium always comes with a 1:4 ratio. Do I say that good? 3 and 12. Yes, that's 1:4 ratio with magnesium. Magnesium ensures the plants can develop chlorophyll. And then there is sulfate. I'm not sure why that is there, but Epsom salt is an additive many growers give to their orchids. Is magnesium sulfate, so that might be why that's there. And then you got a list of some micronutrients which they need, but in very short amount. These are almost always present in tap water. Well, at least here it is. Many fertilizers you can buy in the stores are not nitrate-based nitrogen sources. It's a mouthful, but okay. They are based on urea. Urea is a good nitrate of nitrogen source for soil plants, and for soil plants only, because in soil live bacteria that can transform the urea back into nitrate. And as most of our orchids are epiphytes, there are no soil bacteria in the media we use. Not that kind of soil bacteria, at least. So the urea stays in the pot and is very hard for orchids to pick up. So a good orchid fertilizer has it in a source orchids immediately can pick up. Nitrogen is for strong growth, for a lot of growth. Calcium ensures the growth are strong and healthy, and magnesium ensures that the leaves look fine. Potassium and phosphorus is more in need of for blooming or for other stuff. Potassium, I guess, it all works together. So that's why I only use a balanced fertilizer, because I'm afraid that when I'm going to put extra additives, I'm gonna mess up the ratio, and I'm not sure, but I thought too much calcium hinders it needs magnesium. They work together, but if one of these two are too much, they'll start work against each other, so it's harder for it to pick up. So that's why I use an orchid-based fertilizer, Rainmix, and I think MSU too, and probably most fertilizers are hygroscopic. They like to pick up water, so always close the container. And what I do, I have here an extra container which I store my closed fertilizer container in, because I do not trust the what you call it, the package it's in. I'm taking double measures on that side. I use RO water with a TDS meter. TDS meter, as I said, measures the particles in a solution, and for RO water it should be very low. Put the sensor in. There's a whole button on here. It can't get much purer than that. So TDS of a TDS, there are 3 parts per million in this water. So this water is very pure. Nutrients are, they need some range of pHs, which ensures they get picked up very well by the plants. Personally, I don't dabble around with pH. What I do is pure water without any solids dissolved in it. Water doesn't want to be pure, so it wants to pick up stuff. And if you leave the container open, it will pick up CO2. That acidifies the water a bit. So what I do, sometimes I water and feed from an open container where the pH will be lower because of the CO2 the water wants to pick up. And sometimes when I make my new RO water, I bottle it up straight away, so the pH is higher. The pH from the RO water from the tap is about 7. Feed nearly always lowers the pH, and the perfect range is from 5 to 5 to 6 to 5 pH, so a bit acidic. 7 is neutral. That is for most orchids. Some light-to-phytic orchids, and especially some Paphiopedilums, like it a bit, the pH a bit higher, so a bit harder. But that's something you have to look up for your plant specific. So by sometimes water from closed bottles and sometimes water from open buckets, that's the way I shift my pH a bit. So sometimes they get a little bit higher pH feed and sometimes a bit lower, and I hope and I think that will give enough of an fluctuation for it to pick up all the nutrients. One thing more, you got mobile nutrients and immobile nutrients. Mobile nutrients are the NPK, the nitrogen, the phosphorus and the potassium. An immobile nutrient, for instance, is calcium. If it's picked up in the plant, it's transported to where it's needed and it stays there. It can't be moved by the plant if it's needed elsewhere. So calcium is very important. Nitrogen, you can see that on your Phalaenopsis leaves. If it gets too little nitrogen, it will pull it from the older leaves. Those are the leaves that will yellow and fall off, but it will pull the nutrients, the mobile nutrients from the old leaves for the new growth. So it's quite normal for Phalaenopsis. It's quite normal to lose a bottom leaf, but it's not necessary to happen in the rate it sometimes happens. So have a thought about that when you're losing your bottom leaves. And I just take a little bit of the Rainmix. I put it in. I know how much feed I have to put in to give it about the ppm I like. I'm not a high feeder. I closed it in the other container and closed that one up. So it's safe, it can't pick up any moisture now. Then give it a good stir. Wait a minute, I'll have to give. Yes, okay. Don't know why that spoon is lying here, but okay. Let's use it. Oh. Then we will take our TDS meter, clean it up so it's visible on the camera. Get the sensor in it's a bit on the low side. Mostly I feed at 100 to 110, but it's 85 now. That is a low feed. I'm more of a low feeder than a high feeder. I know, for instance, Nina from Ninja Orchids always feeds 300 parts per million. I think that's quite high. I'm more of the low feed, and then I'll just feed more often and flush less. But either way, Vandas and good growing Phalaenopsis, they should be able. I think vigorous Oncidiums as well. They should be able to, and Cattleyas, they should be able to take the 300 parts per million. But I like to feed my orchid, so it's a choice you make. I like to feed my orchids, so I'm choosing a lower parts per million. So I am sure I will not get any root burn. So yeah, that's just what I do. I just feed more often. I like to prepare the feed and stir it, and yeah, I like to feed my kids, my orchids, it is, but I don't want any kids with, I don't want any kids with a K. I want kids with a CH, that is. But okay. So I like to do that, and that's just what I do. If you use a TDS meter, it's worth its weight in gold. They are very cheap to buy on Amazon or eBay or any other store that holds it. We got bol.com in the Netherlands. There, you can get them there too. And that's where I probably got this one. So, and as with all feeding, I'm on the Roger-Frampton doctrine. When in growth, feed and water well. If not, less. Or if not, don't. So feed and feed when in growth, feed and water well. If not, don't. Because the feed will just stay in the pot, will salt up the pot. That's no good for the roots. If they are not taking up water or not needing any water because there is no growth, the water will stay in the pot for too long. That could cause a problem for the roots, etc., etc. And when in full growth and you don't water them as much as they need, the roots will dry out and could die. The growth won't be as strong. So when in growth, feed and water well. If they are not, don't. Well, it's 17 minutes already, so I'm going to sign off. See you on another honeybees and orchids video. I think the next one will be an honeybee video. We'll have a last look at the bees before winter, and yeah, see you next time on that one. Houdoe.